Welcome. So today we're going to be talking about an overview of auditing as a compliance tool. How many of you audit in your day-to-day activities? If you could give me a green check, please, or a red X if not. All right. Okay, great. So we're going to be talking about this in terms of an approach for, how quality assurance differs from quality control. I get to ask that question a lot. We have folks that want to transition or that are trying to do both, and of course we have to be independent and separate from those monitoring functions. We'll talk about some of the factors that determine who gets audited and how that auditing takes place. We're going to look at some compliance program guidance manuals and touch on those a bit, and then we'll look at some of the more recent non-compliance trends. We're awaiting the FDA's release of information for fiscal year 2016. We do have information from fiscal year 2015, and interestingly enough, maybe not a good thing, it hasn't changed significantly over the last many years for their inspection findings. So we're going to start off talking about a basic definition of auditing and what it is and what it's not. So an audit is a systematic and independent examination of trial-related activities and documents. And if you look at ICH's definition, it really unfortunately places the audit as something that we do after that study is over. So if we think of it, we want to make sure that we're using auditing as a compliance tool, and we're really only able to do that if we are using our auditing before, during, and then, if necessary, after that study takes place. So we're really pushing for pre-qualification audits, in-process audits, and rather than just going in after the fact and doing some of those cleanup type audits for pre-submission or pre-inspection. What we do when we audit is we are looking at systems. So we'll talk about how auditing and monitoring differ in that approach. We know we need to be independent. We need to be independent of any of the input processes. So any of the clinical operations, things of that nature. We're making sure that we're compliant, that everyone's compliant. If you think about quality control, that monitoring piece, ICH defines that as occurring within the quality assurance system. So when we go to a site, for example, we're not just auditing that investigator, we're auditing everyone, because that's where everything comes together. We're auditing the IRB, we're auditing the sponsor, we're auditing the monitor. So quality assurance are planned and systematic actions. They're established so that we can focus on what's important. If we're doing a risk-based approach to auditing, which hopefully we are moving in that direction, certainly with the updates we see in ICH E6R2, and the FDA talked to us about a risk-based monitoring approach almost 4 years ago now. We want to make sure that we're focused on what matters. And in clinical research, I always argue that our product in clinical research is credible data from protected subjects, regardless of your investigational product or your therapeutic area. So when we audit, that's what we're going to focus on. What has to go well? What has to happen for us to be able to meet our objectives of this protocol, of good clinical practice? And that's what we're going to focus on. Monitoring is the act of overseeing the progress of a clinical trial and making sure it's compliant. But again, if you look at that verb, it is compliant. So it's more of a real-time, day-to-day operational techniques and activities as ICH defines quality control. So those operational techniques and activities undertaken within the quality assurance system. So under the umbrella of quality assurance, separate, but we are assessing when we're auditing. Both quality assurance and quality control, monitoring, auditing and monitoring, are focused on compliance and conduct, but we take different approaches for how we make those assessments. And it's an important distinction. Quality improvement is where they combine. So what we know about auditing, kind of in a nutshell, I like to think that monitoring focuses on the data but auditing is going to focus on the systems that are generating that data. So rather than just go in and look at each data point, we can do a top-down approach and look at systems to determine if we should expect to see a quality product. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with systems auditing, but if we look at systems, we can drill down through the subsystems and the processes, and that's why we can sample and don't have to do 100% source document verification, because as auditors, we have always incorporated that risk-based approach, which is why that risk-based monitoring really pushes us to rely on that as well. There's some things we're always going to do 100% review on, but other things we can sample.